If you're learning a language and verb conjugations never stick for you, like you've learned it consciously but you still keep getting it wrong and making mistakes when you practice, it doesn't mean that you're bad at languages. I mean, it's one of the most common language learning problems, so it's not like everybody's bad at languages, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not you, it's the way that you've been taught and conditioned to interact with verbs and learn verbs probably from like your high school Spanish class, which we can't even get into that today. Remember that? Traumatizing. What's up, language freaks? My name's Elysse and I speak 1 gajillion languages. Not really, but we're getting close. And today I want to talk about how to make verb conjugations stick not just by memorizing, not just by drilling, and definitely not with those goddamn charts. Put it down. 10 years ago when I was trying to learn Spanish on my own, yeah, this is what I wish someone told me. So let's just get right into it, baby. First of all, I want to talk for a second about why memorizing, especially with language and like verb conjugations, it just does not work. Your human brain, okay, it was not made to memorize anything other than like quick facts. Like what's the capital of Comoros? It's Moroni. What year did the US enter World War I? 1917. I'm training for Jeopardy this year if you can't tell. So let's do a fun little exercise really quick. Close your eyes. Nobody's peeking, right? Don't peek. I want you to close your eyes and visualize yourself like walking through the front door of your house and just walking around. And look around, like what's to the right when you first come in? Is it a wall? Is there a coat rack? Is it the door to the kitchen? Okay, now go to your bedroom. Where's the pile of clothes? And if you say there's no pile of clothes in the bedroom, you're f***ing lying. We all have a pile of clothes in the bedroom. You know what? Hey, in solidarity, I'll show my pile of clothes in the bedroom. Yeah. Okay, you can open your eyes. So my point is, the reason you know the layout of your house or your apartment isn't because you like studied its floor plan on paper or because you like memorized a list of what's in every room. You know it because you're immersed in it every day. You live in it. And my friends, this is the same reason that you can't memorize a language. Like you have to truly be in it as well. In my opinion, there is like nothing less suitable to be learned through memorization than a language. Like languages are super dynamic. There's a ton of moving parts. There's, you know, grammar, pronunciation, vocab, all these things you're trying to like keep in mind when you're speaking it. And so you need to match that. That's your job. Your job is to learn the language and learn verb conjugations dynamically. What does that look like? We'll talk about it soon. Be patient. So like when you try to learn verb conjugations through flashcards or just sitting with a chart and trying to memorize it, like you've already lost because you brought a knife to a gunfight. It's the wrong tool. So let's talk about the right tools. So in that initial period of like you're just starting to learn the verbs, you're just starting to learn the basic conjugations and how the verb changes, you're going to want to find some good, trustworthy websites to learn from and to use as a reference. I really like Reverso Context. They have a really good, conjugation dictionary. So you can like look up any specific verb in the languages they have and see it in all the tenses for all the, you know, all the pronouns. That one clip of Rihanna.
He designed some boxer briefs that both men and women and non-binary people of all gender appropriations and the pronouns, everyone is included.
Of another website I really recommend is Lingolia. They only have like 4 languages, I think, but it is a great website because they have like all the grammar explanations. So you can like learn logically why things are the way they are. It's not just like a chart. And they also have exercises and quizzes. So those are some of my tops. Now let's talk strategy. The reason you're freaking out about verb conjugations and the reason it feels like so much is because you're just purely seeing it as like, okay, I have to learn these variations of the same like base word. Which literally, yeah, that's what conjugating is, but I think learning that way just makes it feel just like a mountain of identical looking words to learn. One thing that makes verbs and learning verb conjugations a lot more automatic, at least in my opinion, is learning the pronoun and the verb together as a chunk. So like instead of learning that in Spanish hacer turns into hago, don't think about that. Just learn yo hago, and that means I do, and leave it at that. Learn it as a chunk. So the next time you start a sentence while you're speaking your target language and you say the pronoun, the time to recall the verb is going to be a lot shorter because there's already like an association. Now, another reason why learning verb conjugations might be making you want to rip your hair out, well, yes, is because you're just trying to learn too much. Like there's too much on the conjugation menu. You're trying to learn a new word, you're trying to learn it for all the pronouns, and you're trying to learn all the tenses. Like that's a lot of information. You're like, you know, just in case, like I might need it in like a random conversation 10 years from now, who knows? I don't want to get caught with my pants down. Stop. Actually, stop. Like, wow. You don't need to know every single thing and every single form of a verb when you first learn it. You just need like a good basis that you can build off of. Like, it's a lot less daunting to cut down the initial amount of stuff that you're learning. Just learn the most important stuff and let everything fall into place later. Like, for example, first of all, just focusing on the most common verbs that you need for everyday conversations. You know, to have, to do, to go, to come, to think. Those are the most common verbs and like high frequency verbs that you're going to come across and use in conversations like 80% of the time. And then everything else is probably like 20% of the time. So it's really not that important to learn all the verbs and all the forms of the verbs. So like when you're reading or watching a movie or something, resist the urge to write down every single verb that you see. And speaking of everyday conversations, most conversations that you're having in your target language, I'm just saying statistically, most of them are going to be between you and one other person, right? So it could help to just focus on learning the I and you conjugations for a verb when you first learn it, rather than, you know, learning the he, she, we, they, you, all, plural. Like I and you, they're the ones you're going to use most often. When it comes to priority, those are the ones that need to be really well studied and automatic. So prioritize those first, and then maybe just let the other pronouns, like you can absorb it through stuff that you read and watch, and then, you know, maybe actively learn them later. And lastly, of course, put the tenses down. Put them down.
Oh, put it down!
In an average conversation, you're not going to be time traveling into the past, present, future, past perfect, future perfect, past subjunctive. Like, we're not doing all that in most conversations. You don't need to know all those. I would say to start, when you're first learning a verb, just focus on the present tense and the past tense. So like in Spanish, all you need to start for hacer is yo hago, yo hice. In German, you just need ich mache, ich hab gemacht. Like those are the like high frequency forms that you're going to see over and over again in like dialogues, TV and movies, books. And these, they will carry you for a while. Everything else, all the other tenses you can fill in later, I promise. There will be time. I think that's the overarching like umbrella idea. It's just like there is time, you can fill it in later, just focus on the most important stuff that you're going to need for conversations and, you know, understanding the media that you watch and read. So talking about the transition into immersion, I think, especially when you're a beginner and you're just learning the verb conjugations, I know I'm going to sound like a hypocrite. I know that I was just shitting on like flashcards and charts and all that, but that is kind of what the super beginner phase is. Like you literally don't know these words, you're just learning how they change. Like the chart has to come in at some point, right? That is the, you know, initial learning period. It's just the beginning. It is useful. You know, you learn the most basic conjugations of some common verbs like I have, you have, I do, we do. Great. But this is where people get stuck. I think that beginners think that they have to master them and then move on to consuming content. So they get really frustrated. They're like, oh, you know, when I do the flashcards and when I do the quizzes and the drills, like I'm still not getting them right. So I can't, you know, start reading books. I can't do all this. And that's where people get stuck. Like, when is the point where you should actually move on from drilling and like the initial learning phase into immersion? I would say once you're past the initial super beginner period where you literally know nothing, like once you've learned the most common conjugations for the most common verbs, you know, do a quick quiz, do whatever you got to do, but then shift into your immersion phase, like as soon as possible, I would say. Immersion, this is just where you spend a lot of time immersing in content that's like appropriate to your level, you know, like books, TV, movies, maybe like beginner podcasts. You have to find like natural sources of your target language that you enjoy, keyword that you enjoy. Like you have to make it enjoyable, otherwise you're just going to be like gritting your teeth and not paying attention. What's also important and really beneficial about immersion is that you're learning in context. Like you're not just, you know, drilling sentences that are like static and in a vacuum. It's like, you know, a story. There's, you know, people, there's characters. It's like real life language. That's like how language actually behaves, how you're going to be having conversations with people. So it's good to expose your brain to it as soon as possible. And this is where verb conjugations really become really automatic because you're seeing the same forms over and over. So what should you actually do for your immersion phase once you switch into immersion? Because like it's easy to just say like, oh, start immersing, but like what are the actual activities? Just a little disclaimer, all of these activities I'm about to mention are part of my polyglot playbook. It's my activity guide where I put like over 60 language learning methods that I use every day. People love it. I think you might love it too. Okay, let's get into it. A good tip for learning verb conjugations with like content that you're immersing with is to read everything that you hear. Like if you're listening to a song in your target language and you're learning through music, make sure that you have the lyrics and you're following along. If you're, you know, listening to an audio dialogue, make sure you have this transcript. If you're watching TV or a movie in your target language, make sure you have those subtitles on. And a platform that I really love love to watch TV and movies on in my target languages is LingoPie. LingoPie is a streaming platform with real TV shows and movies in your target languages so you can stop talking like a textbook and pick up on how people really speak in everyday life. And the best part is that it's designed for language learners without feeling like, study time. And it is very helpful for learning verb conjugations because they have interactive double subtitles. So that just means that you can click on a word or a phrase to see what it means, hear the pronunciation, and you can even save it as a flashcard to practice with. So if you see a verb conjugation that you don't recognize, you can just click it and you instantly understand like what tense or what meaning is being used. It's a lot more effective than just studying verb conjugation charts because you're hearing the verbs in real situations, like in full sentences, instead of just memorizing words in a vacuum. And this is exactly what makes verb conjugations actually stick, like repeated real context exposure. And if you're thinking, well, Elysse, I don't know if I'm ready for real life because natives, they talk really fast. Baby girl, they have speed controls, so you can slow it down and you can also set it to auto pause at the end of every sentence. So, you can replay the lines, you can practice saying the verbs out loud, and you can really just lock in those patterns. And all while you're just sitting on your butt on the couch watching TV. I'll drop the link below if you want to try LingoPie. There's a free 7-day trial, and look at all the languages they have. I know you want to try it. I know it. Anywho, you know the whole shebang. If you're listening to something or watching something, make sure you also have a visual accompaniment because you have to make that like auditory and visual connection, you know what I mean? I think that makes verb conjugations spawn a lot quicker in your brain. Another activity I really love for verb conjugations is doing MadLibs. If you don't know what MadLibs are, I feel like this is super 2000s coded. Maybe, I don't know if this is also just an American thing, but when I was a kid, there was these books called MadLibs, and they were basically stories and like they were for kids, and you had to like fill in the blanks, and you basically like write your own story with their template, and you can make it like as goofy or weird as you want. And so I haven't done an actual one in a long time, but what I do is, okay, disclaimer, I use ChatGPT. Okay, crucify me, Jesus Christ. But I will make a prompt and I'll say like, give me a MadLibs for like A2 Turkish learners, and I want to focus on filling in verbs in the past tense or something like that. You can make it like as specific as you want, like for your level, what kind of verbs you're learning, what tenses you're focusing on, whatever. And then it'll, give you like a story, and you have to fill in the correct verb forms. And you can also ask for like an answer key afterwards. I would also really recommend short stories and like short books to beginners. There is reading content even for beginners. I think sometimes it can be a bit intimidating to start reading books at a beginner level, but there are readers that are targeted towards beginners. Like Ollie Richards' series of beginner short stories is really good. There's also books that are like bilingual. They have like, Spanish on one side, English on the other. So you can compare, and like you don't have to, keep picking up your phone to look up words. You can read even if you're a beginner. Your baby can read. Who remembers that? And if you're reading, of course, I would definitely recommend highlighting verbs when you come across them. And you can like, do different colors or different whatevers to mark different kinds of verbs, different conjugations, different pronouns, different tenses, just so that your brain can start like categorizing them and recognizing them as soon as possible. And of course, in my opinion, the best immersion tactic is to just talk to yourself. I recommend this all the time. I think some of y'all feel like it's goofy and you feel silly doing it. Even when you're like home alone, why is that? I talk to myself in my target languages all the time. I'll just like narrate stuff that I'm doing. I'll be like, I am cooking, I'm cutting a shallot or whatever in my target language. Talk to yourself in the shower. What's wrong with that? And when you do this, you'll start to recognize like the stuff that you don't know. You can make mental notes of the things that you should work on and like the verb conjugations that you need to work on. Because the important thing to remember is that verb conjugations, they don't just exist in a vacuum. Like you need to start just creating sentences, and it's good repetition. And it could also, there's so many benefits. It also gives you like some speaking confidence. If the first time you ever speak your target language is to a native speaker or something, of course you're going to be nervous. So talking to yourself, it just solves so many problems, and it's really, really good exposure. So we've gotten to the troubleshooting phase. What do you do when, you're using the language, you've had some exposure, the conjugations logically in theory, but in practice, you still keep messing them up? Like, what do you do? That's really the common problem where people get really stuck. First off, don't panic and go back to like memorizing charts and, flashcards and whatever. That's usually the reflex, but it's not the right fix. This is where I think you have to really remember to take advantage of the internet and all the tools that it has to offer. I'm going to sound like a boomer saying this, but I really feel like, the younger generation, like me included, like everyone now, I feel like it's just become so common that the internet's just there, and we forget like you can learn anything sitting on your ass at home in Wichita, Kansas. Like, So like I mentioned earlier, it's really important to have some good websites that you trust where you can do exercises, where you can find explanations. So, do some practice quizzes, do some drills, practice on Clothesmaster with the cars where you have to like fill in the verb, Not to, learn everything from scratch again, but just to bring to the surface whatever's not sticking yet. Then once you can like notice the pattern of what your brain keeps getting wrong, there's like your work cut out for you. Like you have to start tracking your mistakes. Like, is it always that you mess up the conjugation for we? Is it a specific tense? Is it like irregular verbs and stem changing verbs that really trip you up? Like literally, write your mistakes down if you have to. Not every single mistake, of course, but like just the ones that you notice yourself that you keep making. Then you just laser focus on those. I say, in the content that you're watching and reading, you just hunt for them and notice them. Do drills with those specific forms until it just becomes second nature. You just need to like rinse and repeat those specific forms until it stops feeling unfamiliar. In my opinion, I feel like that's the real mastery of verb conjugations. Like not knowing every single thing, but being able to recognize like your own biggest problem areas and clean them up. And not have the existential crisis of like, oh my god, I'm so bad at this. Like, no. Just find your mistakes, focus on them, correct them. Doesn't have to be a big thing. And finally, I know I'm gonna sound like a wise old tortoise or something saying this, but you just have to give it time. Like, it's good to know verb conjugations and learn them consciously, but after you hear and see the same forms over and over again, your brain is eventually just going to like automatically recognize them. I promise that. It may not seem like it now, but I do promise. It'll also come naturally once you start like using them and hearing them in different contexts. So like, in conversations, when you're reading a book, you see it in a movie, in the news. I think it's like the repetition across different contexts, which really, really locks it in. You just have to trust the process. Okay, trust. And keep feeding your brain enough exposure for it to do its thing. And it will. It will. So that is just about it, my friends. I know that verb conjugations, they can be really tricky. You can start to feel like I'm just never going to get it. But you have to trust in the vision that like someday these are just going to be automatic in your brain. You're going to be having a conversation with someone and you're not going to be focusing so much on the verbs. You're going to be focusing on developing your ideas, much more important things. Like one day you're not even going to remember or even think about verbs in a conversation. And that's the truth tea. That's the ginger lemon tea. Oh, I was about to drink my microphone. Hello. Like and subscribe if you've ever tried to drink your microphone. I hope everyone's having a very happy new year. I am going to be flying to Chicago tomorrow to do a skiing trip with my friends. I'm really excited. Any skiers out there? I'm still not that good. I'm still pizzaing, but yeah, that's my goal this trip is to graduate to French fry. Have a great day. Love ya. See you soon. Bye.